So the price of gold is back up. Now we just need to figure out how much we care. Okay, so we're going to take a look at gold's recent price shift, the shift to the upside. That's been a little while since we've been able to say that. We're also going to look at why it happened, what might happen next, and then to a certain extent, how much it all really matters, because in the long view, that last part, it really isn't the most important thing. I'll explain that part too. So first of all, the price gains. Gold just had its best week in over a year if we're looking at percentage gains. Spot is up around 3% since the Fed's announcement last week, which is a big change if you consider that it was down nearly 6% in July alone prior to that. That's more than 15% down from the all-time highs in March. So this is definitely a change in course. Now the upswing, I don't know if we'd call it expected or not. I thought that it was the most likely option. I think I can say that part. I thought the story of sentiment changing when rates went neutral, that all made sense. When the Fed let off the hawkish stance a little bit, that made sense. At least enough sense to make a video or two about it to get kind of sort of on the record. Now, I thought the recent drops were buying opportunities as well. I bought extra during the past few weeks when we were at 1700, when we were even down in the 1600s, just barely. And I made some videos about that as well. So I was on record with that too. Now, honestly though, I'm almost as surprised when things make sense lately as I am when they don't. Now, if I had placed a bet on being back at 1770 spot and then somebody gave me a chance to parlay it just with a simple bet, which comes next, 1805 or 1735, I would have passed. I'd just cash out. I see scenarios going both ways. I think that it'll continue up, but I'm like the technical analysis guys here. If A happens, it goes up. If B happens, it goes down. I just think the surprise that gold actually did what I expected it to do is still strong. So that leads to the next point of whether it really matters. So it does matter, but just not really in the immediate future. So let me go off into the weeds here a little bit. A while back, I decided to tighten up what I'm buying and then focus more on what's easiest to liquidate or what really sticks out. So those are two categories for me. In the first category, it's tubes. I'll continue working on Eagles and Buffaloes, possibly Canadian Maple Leafs. And in the second category, it's just getting a lot pickier about random stuff. And that doesn't mean that I'm off my happy idiot purchases. I'm still keeping an eye out for those high relief Perth Mint coins, and I'll buy continuations of series coins or special releases that I'm already into, but not random stuff. I might grab something that holds more collector value than what I typically go for. I might even buy that gold Aureus someday. I've been saying that for something like 10 years. But the important part is that it has to be special, not just different. Now, I don't know if I need to explain why, but I'm going to give it a shot anyway. If I was just looking at a backup fund, like I've talked about here a few times, I'd want, say, 24 months of minimum expenses covered. There is a purpose for that amount of gold. And then if I continue to stack beyond that point, I want that to be intentional too. I want to have a purpose for anything that I'm buying, even beyond that backup fund. Now, I know a lot of people will say you can never have too much gold, and I'd agree in principle, but it's relative to all of these other things that you have going on. If you don't have any need for capital at some future point, then yeah, you can never have too much gold. But if you do, if you have any debt at all, or maybe you'd like to retire at some point, and maybe you're just not so wealthy that you don't know what to do with all your discretionary cash, well, then you can probably have too much gold. Especially if it's the kind of gold that could be a pain to liquidate. So the point about whether the current price of gold and the trend for where it's going really matters ties into all of these things. Now, I don't know where it's going from here. I think we're going to continue to see dips, but we'll see growth over time. You can take that for what it's worth, not very much. But if I only thought the price would continue to go up, or I had so much discretionary cash that I didn't know what to do with it all, I wouldn't be making this video. I'd be out buying random stuff. There are reverse-proof Libertads to be purchased, but now that we've seen gold at $1,700 recently, I'll buy a little bit more carefully. And now that I'm beyond that initial goal of 24 months of minimum expenses, and beyond another goal too, I'm trying to think of anything more as savings. And if my purpose for buying gold is to save, well, I want it to be as easy to sell as possible. So hopefully everything that I've said so far is pretty straightforward, because now I'm going to throw another layer on the cake. I don't know if this is too specific to where I'm at in life personally, but I'm going to dive in anyway. At some point I'm going to retire. And maybe that seems like a far off place to some of you. It might seem like it's in the rear view for others, but it's a strange concept to me, not having income outpacing my potential spending. So I'm trying to make sure that I have a few things taken care of ahead of that. No debt, that's a big one. Having some passive income is another. And sometimes picking up passive income means taking on some initial debt, and none of that has ever really scared me until you start to put a time frame on it. What if you weren't happy with your current levels of income through rent, dividends, whatever, but you wanted to retire in, say, 5 years? And you pick your own timeline. I'm just going to use that for this video. So if I'm thinking about a retirement plan, and that even sounds strange to say it out loud, but I want any gold that I'm saving outside of my backup fund to be something that I could convert as if I saved a pile of cash instead. Now, in my head, maybe it's something like a final debt payoff on an income property. I don't know. That's pretty specific, and I realize that this whole idea is getting a little bit specific to where I'm at, but I wish that I would have put some of those plans in place earlier. I feel like the last 2 years have been fixing things on the fly that I wasn't expecting to have to be fixing, and now all of a sudden a few years are gone. And I don't know what happened, but somewhere in there some kind of switch was flipped, and that has me thinking about retirement. It's just not something I was thinking very hard about before now. In my head, I figured that I wanted some gold as a little bit of insurance. I wanted some to hand down to my kids, and then I figured that I could sell some now and then when I was retired. It's an exit strategy, but it was a pretty loose one. And when you put a time frame on a potential exit strategy, it gets real pretty fast. All the things that I talked about in the beginning get a lot more important to current price. That's important if you plan to sell in 5 years or whatever we're using. Pacing buys and watching price direction to better time your buys, that's important. And then how easy it is to sell in bulk. Well, that's important if you're not only selling in 5 years, but you're selling a large amount. So as a mind exercise, if you bought an ounce of gold each month for, say, 5 years, you'd have 3 tubes to sell. If gold spot was $2,000 at the end of that time frame, now I think that that's probably conservative, by the way. I'll just say that. I'm assuming price is on the upswing, but I'm buying like it could go either direction in the short term. 1 ounce a month for 5 years is 60 ounces. 60 ounces at $2,000 an ounce is $120,000. 3 tubes is pretty easy to move, so you could have that pretty quickly. And I could use that as a down payment on a new property that would be cash flow positive moving forward. I could use that to pay off a current property that might be cash flow neutral today. Maybe I could pay off any final debt that I have. Now that's how I'm thinking about things. So these numbers are made up, but the idea of retirement, it has me thinking about very specific plans. I've always thought that I'd use gold for retirement in one way or another, but all of a sudden, it seems like it's time to line that up and get specific. So this one kind of took a turn. I think maybe I need a recap. I think I started off with the idea that gold has really had a lot of people feeling bearish lately. And that change seems kind of sudden, but in the longer term, I think that it's mostly just an example of why it makes sense to have a plan. Now, I have 3. One of those plans is for backup gold. That's the 24 months that I keep talking about. One is for fun. That's the happy idiot stuff. I hope that all goes to my kids. They can figure out what I was thinking when I bought it. And then the last is hopefully going to be fun for my wife and I. Maybe I can use it to make retirement a little bit easier. Maybe it will allow me to retire a little bit earlier. Who knows? So that's what I'm planning for. I'm working on some new goals to get after it again, and I'm not planning on buying on the current upswing, but I am assuming that we'll have another wave coming. Right now, I'm eyeing some eagles again. Somebody's going to have to try to talk me out of it. Okay, let's call it good there. Let us know in the comments what you think about the upswing in gold price again. Let us know where you think it's going. Let us know if you care. I'm actually more interested in plans anyway. So let us know if you have a good one, a good plan, because maybe I can steal it. And then while you're in the comments, be sure to hit the like button if you found any of this interesting. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on if you want to see more on the topic. And if you're still here, thanks again for watching. I always appreciate your time. Take care.